This is Talk is Sheep, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Society of BC, brought to you by Sitka Gear. Come along as we bring conversations that matter to you into the high alpine. This episode is sponsored by our conservation partner, Yeti. Thank you Sitka Gear and Yeti for investing in healthy wildlife and sustainable ecosystems.
Well, over on the Dark Continent, we've made our way over to South Africa and specifically flown into Joburg. And yeah, gentlemen, it's good to be here. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Cheers. So it is a true definition of welcome to the dark side.
Yeah.
Nectar of the gods there. Wonderful. Well, okay, so we're going to set the scene a little bit here. Obviously, our listeners are well aware that the Wild Sheep Society BC has been working closely with Boswell Jacobs for a number of years, and a number of our members have come over here. Obviously, Rion's donated generously to the society, and just a bunch of us have come over on trips over the years. And so Nolan Wanup had put together a group of individuals. There was originally, I think, about 25 of us that were going to come over together to South Africa. So we started planning this about 2 years ago. And so on the podcast with me today is our illustrious VP, Mr. Chris Barker. Welcome. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. And then none other than Mr. Don Stevenson and his mini-me, Tyler Stevenson here, all the way from Burns Lake, British Columbia. So, gentlemen, the four of us came over together. We flew out of Vancouver on the same flight. And Don, Tyler, welcome to the podcast as well.
Thanks for having us, Kyle.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we'll set the scene a little bit here, and then I want to talk about sort of expectations for the hunt. So we're day sort of 1 in South Africa. I guess we got in early this morning, which is basically 9 hours difference from British Columbia, and we're going to be here on a 10-day safari with Boswell Jacobs. So we're going to back up the bus and just talk a little bit about this. We've been talking about this for 2 years. And so we've been watching for hunts and trying to buy hunts on our auctions. And now Rion's done a pretty good job on his marketing. And I was fortunate enough, there was a hunt at Joey BC. I was at their AGM last year in their fundraiser. And Rion had a hunt there, and we managed to pick one up, Chris and I, on that one. And very rarely do Rion's hunts go affordable price. And we managed to get the hunt. So we've been planning this now for a year. And so with our hunt package, we've got 10 days of the hunt, and then we've got blue wildebeest and an impala. So that's really cool. And then you can add on. And with my budget, I'm going to be very modest. I think Chris is not too crazy. It sounds like Don and Tyler have a little bit higher aspirations, but we'll dive into that in a few seconds here. So there's been a bunch of BC folks come over here. I know Chuck Peeling from Spike Camp, and he was over here last year. They're coming back again, I think, this year. Nolan was here a couple of years. So in our group now, we've got Nolan Wanup and his family. We've got Dennis Cabana and his family, and then the four of us going on the trip. So.
Greg Rensmeg came over with his family too.
Yeah, Greg and Kirsty were over here with the whole family, I think, 2 years ago, and they were looking at coming this year as well, and then just didn't align for them. Chris Rathall came over as well. So, Rion's treated us very well. He's a very respected outfitter, and so we're just sort of have high hopes and aspirations. We don't really know what to expect other than the dozens of people we've already talked to that have been here. And then there's a whole litany of people coming here behind us. So Chuck is coming back with Gary Flack, and Don Lynham are coming over, and then I talked to Gary Whitaker. Him and some friends are coming over. So Rion's done a really good job reaching out to our community, and so I want to dive into this, and we're going to do a multi-part series while we're over here. I want to talk to obviously Rion. I want to talk to some of his crew, and I'm not sure what the level of English is like, but let's talk about the journey getting over here. Maybe we'll start off with you, Tyler. What was your sort of experience on travel to South Africa?
It was fun, long, but good. It was fun to be part of the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Don? I know you've never been out of North America, so.
No, not at all. It was daunting to say the least at first, but it worked out well.
Yeah, it's been pretty seamless.
20 some hours of flying time.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no easy way to get here, and it's interesting. We ran into Corey and Ron in the they're over here on safari. They're out of Denver, out of Durango there.
Yeah.
And their journey was Durango to New York City direct, but it was over a 15-hour flight. So there's no pretty way to do it, no matter how you slice it. And then coming from the west coast of British Columbia, it's even worse. And honestly, truth be told, it wasn't, in terms of the flights, it was pretty seamless. It's just we had a bit of a long layover there in Frankfurt. So I came out of Kelowna because I was up there for a convention. It was 37 hours of travel time. So it was a bit of a long time without a shower and a soft bed, but we're here now. So
yeah, I'm really glad Ryan had made the arrangements for us to stay where we are here tonight and stuff. It's quite a welcome to Africa.
Well, I think we'll call this one Under the Africa Sky because we're at Africa Sky here tonight, and obviously this is a go-to place for safari individuals. Those two gentlemen, they bought their hunt. I mentioned earlier they're out of Colorado. They bought at the Four Corners SCI banquet, and they're over here. And I think Corey said he's hunting. Is it croc he's after?
Yeah, he's after croc
with the bow and arrow. So he sounded a little bit cryptic there. He was like, I'm not sure if it's good or bad, but we'll find out shortly. So. Super cool. But so let's talk a little bit about expectations, Chris. First of all, was this ever a bucket list trip? Had you ever had aspirations to do South Africa?
Not really. No, it was. Not at all. I'd seen people come to Africa, and it was like, I don't know if I really want to take the time to go to hunt Africa. There was still stuff in British Columbia and North America to hunt. So expanding horizons, obviously. Reading a bunch of books right now and has changed the perspective, but we haven't really had a chance to think about it too much coming here. But I think now we're here, like Don said, hospitality is fantastic, people are great, and I think the unknown is what makes it really interesting because I don't really have any expectations. So expectations they're probably low in the sense of not knowing what's going on, not because of what I think is here. I think once we get out there, I think the expectations, the excitement, the camaraderie piece, and you touched on it, Tyler, the camaraderie piece is really key for us four to hook up. It was really cool. So my expectations in coming here were never really there, but I think now we're here, like you said, we're onto the dark continent. It's pretty exciting, and I don't think it's sunk in yet, to be quite honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's lots to undertake, and how about you guys? I don't think, Don, I think you were kind of, I know Nolan approached you and said, hey, have you ever thought? And he wanted you as part of that initial group. And had you ever had thoughts or aspirations at all?
I always kept saying one day.
Right.
And then Nolan asked us to join up, and I just asked, I go home and decide right away. So went home, talked to Tyler. We said, yeah.
Well,
and the rest is history. You know what I mean?
Got approval by Mom.
I got approval from Mom, which is important. Stuff, just everything kind of worked out. It's maybe not the best time of year for us to be gone, but the group that was coming, we wanted to be part of. So,
yeah, and I think that's part of it, right? Is that camaraderie in the group and the people. And when I hear stories of Africa, I hear about the hospitality, the people, the animals. The hunt is, there's obviously lots of excitement there too. But it's always usually about the experience with the people. And so far, Africa has not disappointed. It was interesting. We got off that airplane, and people were waiting for us, and they've just treated us really well here at Africa Sky so far, and we haven't even got to meet out with the outfitter yet. So we got high expectations. Should be.
And as far as the game aspect for me, I mean, I always thought a kudu, but recently I've been thinking otherwise. So when we get there and get boots on the ground, I guess the decisions will be made on the fly.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that Nolan's been. He was over a couple years ago now, and they kind of have a bucket list, and they've seen it, and they kind of know what to. I've got a very modest list, like I said, with our package. We have the blue wildebeest and impala, and then got a couple of animals. Kudu be pretty cool, but not sure that I have the budget for it, but if you guys end up getting the kudu, I know, Tyler, that's on your wish list there.
Yeah.
As long as I'm part of that experience, that's it for me. I don't need to be the guy pulling the trigger. And obviously, kudu is one of the most beautiful trophies in Africa. They're just such a cool animal, but not sure I'll get there on this trip.
Yeah.
But should be fun.
No, for me, it's amazing. And then when we met Rian a few years ago at our banquet in Penticton, and then talked to him, just that sealed the deal for me.
Yeah, he's a really good guy, right? And I honestly don't know Rian well at all.
No, me neither. But
I didn't even get to talk to him in Penticton, as you well know. He was busy as all get out. And yeah, he said his booth was absolutely full too, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it was.
yeah. Well, and it's interesting, just as an aside, we have one outfitter at our show, and there's a reason for it, right? It's we've worked with African outfitters over the years, and we get phone calls like, oh, this didn't work out, and we expected this, and we didn't get that. And we honestly have never had that with Rian. It's just the feedback's been, and a lot of people in our community, obviously, like you said, the list is pretty long with Greg and Nolan and Chris and dozens of other people, and they always just come back raving about Africa, the experience, and and here's Chuck. Chuck's back the next year.
yeah,
And then we got Chris Rathel's planning a trip next year with Mike Southern as well, right? So Chris was here and just had a fantastic time. And Chris was actually one of the guys where he was going to go with somebody else. And then he got to know Rian through the society and through the expo, and talked lots to Rian. And he's like, you know what, we're gonna buy a hunt there and try it out. And I don't think Chris even pulled the trigger on it when he was over here. His kids, Parker came home with a laundry list of stuff, and so now Chris is going to come back on a boys trip with Mike Southern, but it sounds like Mike's bringing the whole family too, and, and Malcolm, they're all coming over. So I don't know, we'll see what that turns out to be like, but I know Chris is going to probably have a few animals on his bucket list on this next trip over. So yeah. Super cool. Have you guys thought about how Africa operates? So I know you've talked to Rian, and I know like Rian's a rancher too and stuff. He runs cows and stuff, and the model's way different here in Africa, as we know, right? Like it's not the North American conservation model. There's a reason that we call it the North American conservation model, and it works really well. I'd love to hear your guys' sort of thoughts on your perspective on this different management model, what it looks like, the high fence stuff, all that sort of stuff. It's different, right? And you kind of get your head around it when you're coming over here.
Yeah, and I think that's probably some of the part that maybe wasn't the motivational piece to come to Africa. And like as you start to, once you book the trip, you start talking to the people, and they say when you come to Africa, they say it's life changing. And to me, that's a pretty big expectation. So if that happens, that'll be, I don't know how to take that in and how that's going to bring back to reality. But I think, their model of what they do, when you call high fence, and it is fence, but it's like these ranches are massive, right? So it's bigger than La Pomosa per se, right? So I think they've done a really good job in making sure that the wildlife is still there. They still have the land to roam on, and you still have those migration pieces that everybody looks upon. But you look at the photography piece. Like if you switch it to the tourism piece, you look at the photography piece and how they stack those vehicles up for those river crossings and those kind of things. Whereas I think if you're going to be critical of a hunting safari, but you're out there, you're a small group, the impact is way lower than a photo safari. And same as like if you go to Kruger, and you had the TV on today down when I walked in, and I go, what is a safari? And he goes, no, that's Kruger. And it's like these little roads running around, and you can just see it's geared towards wildlife viewing, and not against wildlife viewing, but just different ways of how we market wildlife, in a sense of there's the hunting opportunity, there's the photography, the tourism piece, and the models that those people use in. And again, we pitch one against the other, right? So you kind of get in, I don't know if you want to go down this rabbit hole, but those different dynamics of what photography wants, and they say, well, hunting's bad, but hunting funds it. How much does photography put back in that model? So there's the two different models, but basically they're all asking for the same thing. Everybody wants to see wildlife. They want the experience. And, if we start collaborating on that piece, we always talk about collaboration and everything we do and how we do it with the sheep. I think those nuances are here. I don't know if they've been brought together. I'm not experienced enough here, but I think if we bring those models together, we can probably do a lot more for African wildlife per se on the global perspective. Are you going to change all those perspectives in the UK? maybe not. They seem to be against some of this stuff, but we can't import ivory anymore. I don't know if we can do it into Canada or not, but the U.S. they can't. So those limitations on that, is it supporting elephant conservation or is it not, right? So I think we need to, to dive into the stuff, and I think those are topics probably Rianne would be really good for educational pieces on those two pieces and how it compares to what we do in the North America.
Yeah, well, it's so nuanced, right? And it's so difficult. And I think, that's a piece. Like, how much does the photo safari aspect, does it pay the way for conservation? And we see these areas where they've stopped hunting, and Kenya, for example, and there's so many different examples of where the animals were now not worth much, so there's no one there protecting them, and as such, poaching goes through the roof, and then your numbers are in severe decline. And then the part I struggle with is, as hunters, we're notorious for spinning the narrative, and I know the other side does it, and we do it, and we should, but I always struggle with what's the right numbers. And I don't, there's a narrative out there, and I know that it's true, but I think it's important that the correct numbers are usually, I heard about Cecil the lion, where with Cecil the lion, they, stopped hunting lions, and there was this massive growth in lion population, and they had to do a huge cull. And I haven't verified that, and to me, like, that's the stuff we need to verify. And if it's true, we should be espousing it, but it has to be accurate, right? And I think that a lot of the stuff gets spun, and we don't get the true numbers. And I think if you ask, it's finding someone in the middle that can see both perspectives. Sue Tidwell does a great job of that. She's been on the podcast before, and there's others too. DSC does a lot on the education side on that, and I think sharing that message and getting that out there is critical, right? And I'm hoping that we can do some of that here, have some of those conversations. But I also want, we're obviously going to be in camp, so obviously I want Rayan's perspective, I want his tracker's perspective, and it's going to be fun to see what the conversation levels are like. Is there enough English to do a podcast? But it's going to be fun to hear that. One of the things I'm most excited about is hearing about these trackers, right? You hear how incredibly skilled these people are and what they can do. But I have a feeling that maybe we'll have to see if their English is good enough that we can have a conversation on it, but just to watch them in action, right?
Absolutely. No, that's one of the things that's really interesting for me on this is the different style. I've done lots of hunting in North America, mostly Canada, and there's a style of hunting we do, and this is really a completely different style of hunting than what we do at home. And in that respect, that's one of the things I'm the most interested to find out is the differences and how compatible we are for this style of hunting.
Well, the one thing, Don, and this is, you bring that up, and it makes me think about how a lot of countries want to dictate what happens here in Africa. You mentioned the UK, Chris. Yep, they're one of the most notorious, but the US, Canada, these special lobby groups that are dictating on wildlife management principles. And we always get a little bit wonky when they want to shut down grizzly bears, and somebody that's in New York or maybe in London that's influencing the decision making. We're like, is that right that foreign lobby groups, and some of them are well funded too, so they have access to capital, and it's pretty. Is that the right thing for wildlife? And maybe it is. I don't know, but I don't like it personally.
No, me neither.
I got a perspective, and I'm only going to say this, and I don't think you've had a chance to watch this yet. So obviously anybody that's been in the Yellowstone universe and followed Yellowstone, obviously the Madison just came out, 6 episodes, and I had no expectations. And after watching that, and I won't get into potentially the whole story, but the one message, and Sheridan's perfect at doing this, and where I'm going with this, it'll apply to my thought process, is that, Kurt Russell goes to Montana, he goes fly fishing every year with his brother. That was the trip, so it's a boys' trip, right? It's no different than what we do every year when we go sheep hunting. And his wife, Michelle Pfeiffer, she's in New York, and then New York, and the family ends up going to Montana. Me and Cindy are watching this, and I'm laughing because they come out and they're in there, and they're just the mannerisms. It's so, I was laughing because they're so out of touch with what wildlife, the whole Montana piece. They're on about snakes, they're on about bears. and they're on the Madison River, right? And it's like there's no trees around. Yeah, probably there's the odd bear that floats around, but just their perspectives and that piece there. But as it goes through into the episodes, they get to the point where Michelle Pfeiffer's reading his journals, and then she clues in and she goes, he was trying to explain to me what he loved about this, and he's been trying to get me to come out here. And until something happened, she hadn't been out there. And then she goes, I get it. By just having that opportunity for her to remove herself and put her in that position. And I why it became personal for me is for me trying to explain to, Cindy not hunting and why we do what we do and where we want to go and how, just the whole gamut of it. And it just struck home for me that I've done a shitty job of trying to explain of why I love what I do and why I do what I do. And it leads into the conservation side of things. So that really struck home for me. So, if you want to watch it. It's really good. It's sad, but the message is clearly there from Sheridan, how, why, and it applies to our community. So I think that can apply to what we're doing here. Is this, how do you explain what Africa is to those people that aren't in touch with that? I mean, I probably get shit, but reality piece, right? Like, this is the real world. Mm. When we go sheep hunting, it's real, right? There's nothing out there. It is you, the bush, the tent. You eat, shit, sleep. That's it. You're just surviving. Mm-hmm. I've numbed it, and I numb it down, right?
Yeah, but, absolutely. At the bare essentials, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting on the whole Africa piece. Again, I don't understand it to the level like a Sue Tidwell does and so many others. But it was interesting. I was flying with this guy, and he was a Dutch fella. And it was back in my flying days. It was with Cathay, and I was flying out of Anchorage going to Hong Kong. And we sat there, and it's like a 9-hour flight, and you're sitting in the cockpit. And I was talking about hunting in Africa. And I think I just talked to Sue and done a podcast with her and stuff. And we started talking about hunting in Africa. And he's like, you guys are like, he was he's a very, very bright individual, but also very opinionated. And he was a bit critical on that. He's like, how can you go over there and kill these animals? And so I kind of went through the pieces on the wildlife management aspect and about, the worth of animals. If they're worth nothing, that's how they get treated, that they're worth nothing. And then they get, the outcome is decreasing populations, poaching, and all this sort of stuff. And he, by the end of it, but I sat there for 4 hours and explained my perspective on it. And I listened to his perspective, and he's like, well, what about this? And I could rebut a bunch of his stuff. And then by the end of it, he goes, you know what? He goes, you've changed my mind. He goes, but I still fucking hate it. And I'm like, yeah, fair enough. And that's your choice. But, maybe you can understand and have some empathy of why people do it and the importance of it and the value of it. There's actually inherent value in, we say hunting is conservation, and I hate that term. I love it for us, and it hits home exactly what we do, but it's just a waste of breath. Like, when you say that to people, they're like, yeah, whatever. You're like, but how, and that's the age-old problem with hunting and conservation, is how do you explain to someone why it's okay to kill a grizzly bear to a mom sitting in downtown Vancouver and do that in 15 seconds?
Yeah.
You can't. You just can't do it.
No, and you can't change somebody's mind that hasn't got a clue what you're talking about. Like, the broader spectrum, what they see as one grizzly bear life, they don't see the broader picture of wildlife management and the impact of that bear on the environment, right?
100%. And it's interesting, when I know we're weaving off course here, but we're talking about grizzly bears. Of course, it always gets everyone's attention, like mine and all of ours here in this room. But I was out at the Guide Outfitters at EGM this past weekend, and it came up. The minister was there, and grizzly bears came up. And, we were talking about wildlife and habitat and predator management, but it came straight back to grizzly bears and talking about grizzly bears on the landscape. And the CO service were saying that, they're not seeing an increase in significant increase in numbers. But the counter argument is, well, people just aren't reporting it anymore. Like, because, you have a grizzly bear come in, you have a close encounter, you shoot them, to protect yourself, and then you end up the one getting charged with it, right? Because it was that CO wasn't comfortable and we didn't feel like your life was in jeopardy enough, for example. So it was really interesting that the dialogue around that, but the one thing that came about, and we talked about this earlier tonight at dinner, was the impact that grizzly bears are having on other populations, black bears. And what came up at GOABC that I'd never thought of or never came to mind was in the rainforest, and that the spirit bear is they're just getting decimated by grizzlies. There's so many cases where they've found them dead, and they got fatality due to grizzly bear incursions, right? So yeah, there's unintended consequences. It's interesting. Everyone talks about wolves, and of course wolves are a problem on the landscape for ungulates. But we talked about the birds, and then also grizzly bears are incredibly bad in certain areas, Spitzisi being one of them. And you hear about it all the time, right? So
it's just management, right? Like it's that management piece.
Mm-hmm.
when it's over managed to the sense of you can't do X, but the impacts to Y, Z, K, and all the rest of the alphabet, right?
Exactly.
So that's a huge piece. And I think that piece comes back, and I guess, I don't know if I explain it right, but I mean, that's a piece, it's that communication piece about how do we explain what's happening out there, how do we get that message across. And your point, Don, we were in Florida last year, and we were out with Travis and the boys in that bar, and there was a lady and her husband from Florida there, and she was a wolf lover. So I think I don't know, were you there when I was yakking there?
No, I wasn't, no.
So I probably talked to her for about half an hour, right? And it's exactly to your point about having that conservation. I can probably change most people's minds like you did with that guy. They're still going to hold their opinion, but they don't think you're a bad person. Okay, you're not an asshole. I get it now, right? So, and I had that same conversation. I'm a wolf lover. That's how she started off her conversation with me. And I was like, okay, let's go. So for half an hour I talked, and she was a cattle farmer in Florida, and she's on about wolves, but they don't have any bloody wolves in Florida. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, everyone wants to have opinion when they're not impacted by it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges that I find with the grizzly bear issue. And again, back at GOABC, the minister was there, and someone put up their hand and go, well, when you bring in the grizzly bear hunt in, and why don't you just use science? And her argument, and she did a great job. I respected her. Her response was like, British Columbians will decide on what we're going to do with grizzly bears. And I thought, yeah, that's fair if that's the case. But then where it becomes complicated is if you're talking to a rancher in Burns Lake, or if you're talking to an outfitter in their guide concession in northwestern BC, their perspective is formed on the landscape and what they're experiencing happening, and they're seeing what's happening with ungulates, they're happening to see with their cattle populations, and it's not just the hunting community that's affected by this, ranchers, and there's a litany of other individuals affected by this. But it's like, and there's always the joke, Chris, you've said it many times, let's drop 10 grizzly bears off in Stanley Park and see what they think about it then. But it's interesting, the minister brought up Texada, and there was that grizzly bear that made its way into Texada, and it ended up getting shot by a rancher. And the ministers, they said, well, why can't people decide locally? Well, she goes, people are 50-50 straight down the middle in Texada. She goes, that's her home riding. And she said, they're 50-50. And so you could make an argument, yeah, they're deciding, they're making that decision, but where it gets a bit rich for me is the people in Vancouver, Victoria deciding for the rest of the province, and they're just not educated. So how do we address that, right?
Yeah, well, that's the $1,000 question, right?
Yeah, it sure is.
And I think if you bring it back to the dark continent here, it's the same argument with elephants, right?
Exactly.
Like Kruger. They're doing elephant calls to manage the habitat. They're destroying the habitat because there's too many elephants. So, and what are the impacts to the people, right? So here we are, like you said, Kyle, whether it's England, North America, whatever, but what are the impacts to the people? And I think, those podcasts are upcoming, diving into that. And I mean, the meat, I want to try the meat, right? And I think we get to try the meat, but there's no way we can't bring the meat home.
No.
But from what I've heard, and I'm really looking forward to this experience of giving our meat to those communities, right, to the people that are there. And I think that's a piece, you know, Shane Mahoney talks about it, about how much impact wildlife is in feeding people. And I think that's the missed component in Africa that gets lost is, you know, we're just here to come and kill shit.
Lack of education.
Huge. Right, 100%. But how do you deal with that? Because you can't get around that comment. And you kind of touched on the other side, Kyle, is, yeah, we are here to hunt and we're going to kill.
But, yeah, no, it's hard to show that other side of the coin.
But I think that I talking to Rian, over my understanding is that nothing goes to waste. Nothing.
Nothing. They say an elephant disappears in like
Minutes.
Yeah.
Our old friend that shot one numerous years ago, like you said, there wasn't hardly even a blood stain left time they were done with that elephant.
Yeah.
And went to feed the whole community.
Yeah.
Every member showed up and...
So I think that's, you know, that's an important piece, I think, for us, and your voice, obviously, Cal, with the Talking Sheep podcast, is we experience this, then we can really speak to that piece around education. Yeah, we're going to be in our community, but I think that gives us the opportunity to, one campfire, whatever that looks like, to broadcast that message a bit further. And I can see people shift. I think they're getting tired of narratives being pushed. And I think people are starting to look for the truth. And I'm not saying that we always... I mean, I always try to be honest in everything I do. Like, if I screw up, you can give me shit. I don't care. I've got big shoulders and I've made a mistake. So I think having those opportunities that people can trust you, and I think that's, you know, one thing we talk about with our First Nations partners is building relationships and trust. Is building relationships and trust and then spreading that message. So how do we, you know, I think for us, I think, you know, there's a bit of a burden on us when we come back. It's just like that messaging is probably going to change. Like you, obviously, Don, you have that exposure. Kyle, myself, we all have that exposure to bring a message back to say, this was our experience. This is what we learned. And, you know, I'm going to take a complete left turn right now because flying down here that blew me away. We left Frankfurt and we were flying over, and I think we were still awake at that point in time. And it had been about an hour, and we had dinner and stuff. And then we just got to kind of Morocco and the north coast of Africa. And I'm looking at the flight time, and it's 8 hours to Johannesburg. I go, Jesus Christ, this bigger than frickin' Canada flying straight.
It's a big
south.
continent for sure.
It's like, holy crap! Like just to kind of put that in my brain,
It's mind-blowing.
it was mind blowing. So then you think about the impacts, like I said, how much wildlife is out there, and then those nuancey pieces. So I completely went left turn rabbit hole, but maybe I'll stop.
Well, let's back it up. I want to go to that piece in a minute here, but if we go back to the messaging around this, and it's Gray brought this up recently. I was chatting with him, and he's like, we're minions playing with giants. That there's people out there that their sole purpose is to create narrative to disavow hunting, and basically, you know, that's all they care about. That there's foundations, and they have millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that they're investing every day with one sole purpose, and that's to undermine what we do as hunters. So, you know, we have to keep that in mind that, you know, we each have a responsibility, but then it's like you talk about, we'll go back and you know, educate people. Yeah, well, Don can talk about the guy that delivered his hay, and he's probably okay with Africa, and he'll go into town and he'll talk to the guy at the gas pump, and he's probably okay with Africa. But it's like getting outside our echo chamber, and, you know, we've tried it with one campfire, and we continue to work really hard, and there's other organizations. Wild Origins does a really, really good job on the messaging side, Robbie and Mark, and you know, like trying to create that narrative that gets outside our echo chamber. Like, you know, again, the same shit of preaching to ourselves is just not, it's just such a wasted, we have to have that conversation, but we have to have it outside our circles, right?
Yeah.
When I come back to that piece, because, you know, part of the reason we lost a grizzly bear hunt, because our community, and I heard these comments, I don't hunt grizzly bears, so it doesn't really matter. It's not going to affect me.
Exactly.
So what are those ramifications? because you sat on your hands and your ass and didn't do goddamn fucking thing. We lost grizzly bear. You're part of the issue where we're having impact in populations with moose, with elk, with sheep, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Same thing here. And the reason I kind of say it that way, Kyle, is because, you know, and I think this comes, I'm going to point this finger right back to myself. I wasn't really interested in hunting Africa for whatever reason. I can't put my finger on it. But that decision as a North American hunter to come to Africa to figure that piece out and understand those pieces. And, you know, the first piece is going to be to sell in our community. And our community is starting to get on board, like with the groups that we have coming and the guys that are doing these hunts and buying the hunts at our fundraisers. It's all part of that little education piece that, okay, we are starting to understand what Africa is. Obviously, you know, not everybody does a deep dive and researches like you do, or, you know, I've had a little bit of knowledge and I've read some books and about Africa, but I think, you know, the experience of then coming back and then making sure that our community first understands what Africa's about, comes over here and does that, brings that back, and then you're putting those two pieces together. You still become that messenger piece, and I think, you know, with the left, and I won't get into politics too much, Don.
You already have. You just said left. We've already devolved. Too late. I won't. Well, the left. I won't get it. Oh my God.
Yeah, I've done it. But that mindset. Let me rephrase it. Then that mindset of that everything's got to be there. But, you know, the media paints a picture, and the media paints a picture of what we see out there politically. So I think that piece is people are looking for other sources of education. Like I just, you know, just as we sat down to do this, I got an article from an interview I did on the Wren about the Chasm sheep transplant. So, and I haven't finished reading it, but, you know, those other news media pieces are coming out, and people are looking at those people because they're not as biased, right? They are open-minded, and that's, I think, what we look for is open-minded. I really look forward to having a conversation with somebody. I look for somebody that has an opposing opinion to mine. First off, to educate me, but then the opportunity to educate them, like your rebuttal, like the story you told. That two-way dialogue is huge in understanding somebody else's perspective and my perspective. And we were joking about this on the way down about how do you change, you know, there's two ways to change a person's mind, through force or persuasion. And I'm just reading a bunch of books on Genghis Khan. And
yeah, you're the force guy. You're always the guy with the club. Yeah, I'm the guy with the carrot. And there you are behind me with the club. Yeah.
So, but I've given you the 4 Genghis Khan books to change your mind a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've gone down another rabbit hole, and I'll just touch on it. But you talked about these partnerships and, you know, working with other organizations, and you talked about the chasm tree transplant and working with Whispering Pines. And, you know, right now there's, you know, talk about politics in BC and, you know, repealing DRIPA and everything that's going on there. And we're going to stay away from that because that's not what we do. We work on the conservation side. And, you know, there's some pretty deflated people out there. They're concerned, and probably rightly so, about, you know, the future and everything that's going on and this massive change. But there are glimmering hopes of scenarios where people and organizations, so, you know, and I'll speak about the society because of the work we've done. And Chris, you've led a lot of the work we've done, you and Peter and a few others too, but building those, you know, relationships and the trust with our First Nation partners, the relationships that we now have with Okanagan Nation Alliance, that we have with CNA. You know, I just seen their post come out about the Spence's Bridge sheep count, and just, you know, from Cook's Ferry, and just, you know, there's some excellent work that's being done there. And we have to be very careful that we don't undermine the incredible work that's being done with our partners. And I know it's difficult for our members to understand that, but there are some excellent examples. Right now we're working with Casca on, you know, a relationship as well. And they're very pro guide outfitting. They're pro hunting, resident hunting. So there's examples of it out there. And I think people have to be careful not to paint it all with a broad brush. And we always said we'll work with people that want to work with us and that have values that align. I mean, we don't have to agree on everything. There's certain things that we we probably don't want to work with certain people that have certain perspectives on things, but when it comes to conservation and working together, there's some really excellent partnerships out there, and we have to embrace them when we can, especially in this, difficult environment.
Yeah, and I think coming here to Africa, I think that's one thing, I don't know how much will I get exposed to, but I think it's definitely going to open my eyes to a new perspective. And maybe it's something we learn and we can bring back home and we just apply that. I mean, I agree. I think we do a great job with what we do with our partners. And it all comes back to, Wild Sheep Foundation and the society itself. It's those values, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's those values that we have that guide us,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a reason that Don and Tyler are sitting here. Their values, they align with ours. But there are values that align for wildlife and conservation, and I think that's, if you look for common denominators, what drives conservation, those are the things. It's the values that people have and the perspectives. And like I said, I think, whether it's wildlife viewing or what, their values are very aligned to ours.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that some agendas get pushed a little stronger than others, and I think, we've woken up, probably 20 years too late,
mm-hmm.
but I think we're starting to see that perspective change and values aligning and changing the narrative to what we want to do. And, I kind of bring it back to, your values, Don, why you got involved in what you do. And, you're passionate about youth, right?
Yeah.
But it's still a value that drives the whole conservation piece. It's bringing those new people in to our world. I'll call it our world.
And letting them understand our point.
But
Well, your perspective, and I think both you and Tyler, you talked about. I don't know if they're your grandkids. My apologies.
Yeah, my grandkids and his niece and nephew are at the heart of it, of course. But really, it's all youth, because if we can change
even a
youth
couple,
is where we have to start.
Mm-hmm.
You can't change an old dog's mind, but you can help form thoughts with young people sometimes. So
you can start to plant the seeds of, okay, this is what that does, and before you know it, you might not have 100, but you have somebody that at least understands the process of, okay, this is conservation because we need to take this animal to help the population of these animals rise again because they're going down, and at least make them understand where there's balances. And
Well, I love the story you guys told. I think maybe you, Don, was saying that, their involvement this year at the show, right? To me, that's a home run,
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
right? Like how they became engaged.
The
like,
kids now have gone from being spectators to being participants. In my mind, anyway, that's how it works.
Yeah. And that's huge. I mean, that's what we're after, right? Like, both,
Yeah.
we're a little older than you, buddy.
Yeah,
A little.
yeah,
Okay, a lot.
a lot. Yeah,
But both me and Don are in our 60s, right? And I joke around. And, watching that show, the Madison, too, it made me realize that I have X amount of time left to do whatever we're going to do. It doesn't really matter, right? I'm going to cram as much shit as I can in what I got left.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that looks like and where I go and what I do. But, those experiences but to bring in the next generation and understand. So, coming to Africa is okay. We're going to bring that perspective back to Don's going to bring back to his niece and nephew or his grandkids. And what does that look like? So I think, I guess where I'm going with all of this is we're bringing everything together and we're interlocking it, finger locking it together, that this world over here is not that much different to our world over there. And then how do we bring our message to a bigger population? So I guess your podcast needs to go international, buddy.
Look at Chris. I love Barker. This is the argument he used with his wife. I'm like, honey, I'm going to South Africa to save the future of hunting. That's the only reason I'm going there. We're going to go there, experience it. We're going to bring that model back to North America, share the message, and we're going to save hunting. Yeah. It's like Chris the savior. He's going to ride in on his white horse, and
Well, it's nice to think that way for sure. You know
That's
what I mean?
awesome.
No, and for me personally, like I said, I'm very interested in to see how it all plays out and how it works together. And I like Chris, I'm really excited to see the sharing of the meat with the local people and stuff like that as well. And kind of just get a a better feel for how it all goes together.
Yeah. There's lots to learn, and that's kind of part of what we talked about doing some of these podcasts over here. And I'm not sure how many we're going to knock out and how many, but at the very least, we're going to get our perspective today, the day before we're going on the first part of our safari, and we'll do it at the end of our 10 days and see what we learned, what we haven't learned, and it's going to be lots of fun. So.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to every minute of it.
So, any expectations, any thoughts from the three of you guys that?
It's going to be fun.
I think just seeing different habitat environments and where you see the stuff on TV, right? Yeah. So I think actually, does the stuff on TV
match real life?
Yeah, emulate what you're going to experience, right? And if it does, then that changes some perspective that what you see, and I think it comes back to that message in peace, Kyle. So you're the perfect messenger for the future.
For saving hunting.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to, and just to the abundance of the animals in the landscape. They talk about the biodiversity, and there's just the densities are so much higher. You see so many animals, and you hear so many times that hunting, coming to Africa to hunt has changed people's lives. I've never heard of somebody say, I went there the one time and I'm good. I'm not going back. How many people have you heard that about sheep hunting? Almost 50-50. I don't know. The numbers are pretty
50-50,
high. Numbers are high, but I've never heard that about Africa. I've heard people say, I just talked to somebody recently and they're like, oh yeah, I've been 3 times and it's great. It was like, it sounded like they were done. But they'd been 3 times. Right. And, and Gray pointed out to me, he's go, go over and just, you're going to love it. I think that's Gray, that he eats, sleeps, breathes Africa. He said, but just, go and get your, your sort of your starter animals to experience it. And then next time you're back, you can expand your horizons. Right. So it seems to be a common theme that people that come here have to come back. And the one thing that resonated with me is just the quality of people that we've interacted with in the first 12 hours on the ground here.
Absolutely.
Just incredibly accommodating, and and then Rian's obviously been an incredible person. We're sitting at dinner tonight, having a great dinner, and lady walks up and, Mr. Stelter, the phone's for you. I'm like, oh wow, how often have you been at a restaurant when someone comes up and it's Rian's wife, and she's lining up tomorrow and says, sleep in and we'll be there at 10 to pick you guys up. And so it's pretty special, pretty exciting. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we're heading up to Limpopo. We're leaving. We're right in Joburg. We're 10 minutes from the airport, under the African sky, and then I think we got 3 or 4 hours up to Limpopo region there, and then I don't know. I guess we'll see what.
I was gonna say we'll see what happens when it happens.
Yeah.
It was funny because we were walking back from dinner, coming here to do the podcast, and having a whiskey. Don's got his own special whiskey here, but one of the things that struck me, in my nose is not always the best, but just the smell. I could smell burning wood and the charcoal outside, and I was like, "Oh, that smells really cool." So it's just, taking that in, right?
We walked around a little bit earlier today, and there's guinea fowl sitting on an old building just across the fence. And as it got dark tonight, we're seeing bats coming out of the palm trees that are here on the property where the hotel is, and there's definitely a lot of species and a lot of activity that isn't out in the wide open, but it's there.
A lot of shit that wants to kill us.
Yeah, that too. Snakes,
which probably makes it fun, right?
Yeah.
So, I had a friend of mine back home. She was asking about Africa, and she's like, I just couldn't do it. I'm like, well, what? And she's like, being out in a tent and the bugs, and I'm like, well, I don't think we're not freaking with a backpack hiking across the Kalahari and setting up a spike camp. I think it's a little more sophisticated than that. She goes, yeah, but their snakes and stuff can get. So she was all freaked out. She wasn't coming to Africa, but she was excited to hear about it. So
that sounds familiar.
And I have a lot of friends too. They're the same, and a lot of my friends don't think they'd ever want to hunt Africa,
right?
Which is fine. But for me, we had a neighbor at home years ago, Chester Melson, that was bringing stuff in after he retired. He became a world traveler and hunter, and he used to phone me up and ask me to come look at the pictures when he got home from the safaris, and then when he got his trophies there, we'd take them in and help them hang them up. And, it was always a thought that maybe I'd like to try it.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are now, and it's our turn.
Yeah. And how cool is it? Like, we come in and we sit down and we're having dinner, and then two guys walk in, and of course Don gets a little bit excited, and Tyler, because the one guy's got a knife on his belt.
Ranger
it's
carry.
like Don's like, yeah, we're not leaving without having a conversation there, and of course we did. And so we met two great guys from Colorado, and they bought that Safari through SCI Four Corners, so they're down here, and it's just super, super cool. The places you go, and you hear so many stories. Like most of my hunting has been resident hunter in British Columbia, right? I haven't done a ton of guided hunts. I wouldn't say I haven't done any, but not a lot. But you hear about these guys that go all over the world, and they talk about the hunt, but it's a lot of the time the relationships and the people they've met. And,
absolutely, the friends they've made.
Yeah, and I know like Nolan just thinks the world of Ron and his family, and
and we haven't been there yet for his hospitality, and I think he's an amazing. Like just talking to him, it's he's open and good individual to speak with. And he seems like he's very knowledgeable on his subjects, so that's what I'm looking forward to, is gaining a little of that knowledge.
Should be good. So
it's funny because I was just thinking when you were talking there, Don, about relationships and stuff, but it's all part of the experience. And when we use, we used to go up north a lot. Well, a lot. It's a lot for a long time, but we always used to say it was all part of the adventure.
Right.
So if anything, kind of goes sideways a little bit or whatever, and it was all part of the adventure, right? So I'm thinking back, we're 30 some hours of travel, right? And so we're coming through the airport, right? And of course we went for beers yesterday morning. We get off the plane at, I don't know what time it was our time, at 3 o'clock in the morning. We're having beers for breakfast, and we bullshitted for 4 hours in the airport. And it's like, we should go wander around. So we went for a walk, stretch our legs, and we had to switch terminals, and we're coming through security, and there was a young lady in front of us, right? And she's complaining about security. She goes, German efficiency, right? And of course we're all laughing. And then we talked to her a bit more, but she was a beach volleyball player. She'd just been in a pro volleyball player, beach volleyball in Mexico. And it's like, okay, that's part of the experience, right? Like that's part of the adventure, right? Is those little pieces, and it's what sticks in your brain. And usually it's not, maybe the harvesting of an animal, but it's those pieces.
Well, and then there was also that girl we noticed in the airport at Frankfurt wearing the White Horse T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Well, and then we're sitting there having those beers, and the guy that came up, he thought we was working for his company.
Yeah.
We almost got on a free trip with his company. I don't know where the hell we were going, but he was convinced we worked for it. What was the name of it? Altec or something? It was,
something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. And he was, and we told him, no, we don't work for your company. But he wasn't going to let it go. No, he goes, I'm pretty sure you guys do. We're like, no, we definitely don't.
Where are we going? What are we doing?
Yeah, that was humorous. But, to your point, Chris, Hosker talks about that, a lot. Like, he does these really technical, challenging hunts in, Kurg and these international hunts. And he said, people bitch like, oh, it wasn't the best this, or we had to travel this. And like that's what you're paying for. You're paying for the adventure, your experience. If you went there and everything was seamless and you could do it and get on an airplane and be there in 4 hours and go and kill something, it'd be not, no one would want to do it.
Yeah.
You're paying for the adventure, the challenge, the excitement. Like, this is freaking living. This is being a man. Well, he doesn't say being a man, but he implied it. It's like getting out and experiencing these
life.
Living, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you're paying for. You're not paying for this super smooth experience. If you want that, just go do a photo safari somewhere, whatever. This is about adventure and about experience. This isn't about a catered, smooth operation. There's a reason why you fly for 30 hours and then you drive 12 hours from Dushanbe to get to where you're going to start hunting, to think about it.
Yeah.
And then you get sick from there and have to go through Russian frickin', check stops and blah, blah, blah. That's the adventure. That's why we're doing these things, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, 37 hours is a bit gay, though. That was really unpleasant.
Yeah. It's by far the toughest set of flight I've ever done. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was spot on time. They treated us well.
And the flights themselves, were seemed
Great.
like they were perfect, right?
Yeah.
It's just a long time sitting in an airplane seat.
kept joking with Don that I was sitting in those lie flat seats up front,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah.
absolutely not the case. I was stuck in economy.
He was going to light his feet on fire if he kept saying it.
But I think that's the piece, right? It's like it was not. I don't know. I'm not a good sleeper, obviously, as you guys well know. I was conked out today and missed lunch, but
I don't sleep well in aircraft either, but I did manage a little yesterday, but just a little.
but I think that's part of the tough part, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's not. It was seamless, but it was still
Challenging.
part of the adventure, right? It's all part of that adventure piece, right? So,
Well, and it was fun taking off. Like, you take off out of Frankfurt and head straight south, and then we went over France and down over Sardinia and Corsica, and then
Yeah.
coasted in over Tunisia, and
Yeah.
like just making your way through Niger and all the way through those countries and all the way down. It was super, super freaking cool to be. We're looking down, you can see the massive rivers, and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
you
pretty
realize how
sweet.
big the world is and how big we are.
Yeah,
Really are.
absolutely.
Exactly.
Really putting some perspective to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Well, we got 10 days ahead of us, and any prophecies, any sort of expectations?
I'm going to take a wild stab and say it's going to be a trip of a lifetime.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and any must-haves like you're playing your cards close to your chest there, Don. I know you were
Yeah.
leaning Kudu way, but now you're sort of
Thinking Eland because they're big.
yeah,
And Rian says they're the best eating.
yeah,
So that really factored into it for me on that. Thinking about that one is because I'm like Chris. I want to get a chance to experience all that too.
right, yeah,
That's an important part of it for me too, is to be able to at least sample what we've taken and watch the rest get put to good use, right?
yeah. How about you? What do you?
Have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No expectations.
No.
Okay. Well, we'll see if we can get you set up on something expensive. a
Really,
little
no
fun.
expectations. I find that hard to believe, Tyler.
It's, just come to have fun.
Nice.
I'm
Well,
the guy who usually has to do the other side of it.
All the work, yeah.
we'll get them set up on a Cape Buffalo then.
No, 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 no.
Or a lion or whatever, right?
Well, and that's
Taking
the other
donations.
that's the other thing that's got me kind of wondering about is what exactly kind of game are we going to see? What are we going to bump into while we're out there?
Yeah.
All these things could exist here.
Yeah.
Which ones are we going to bump into?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, it's cool because there's 13 of us in that group, so
So we're going to see a
It's
lot
going
of
to be
things.
some cool stuff.
yeah, and maybe like I don't know, we'll see like if we're allowed to go with someone already. I think she's got a lion on her list there, so I'm like told Nolan, you better get me on that hunt, buddy, and he's like, yeah, we'll see. So, but no, and honestly, one of the things I'm looking forward to most is watching you run around with a bow and arrow. Like you talk.
That's going to be cool.
Like if you are able to spot and stalk, like everyone sort of set your expectations pretty low. Like, no, you're going to be sitting on a water hole. And you're like, no, I don't do that. And I've been telling everyone that you're saying that. They're like, well, he's not going to get anything. Then I'm like, Chris has a way. So it's just going to be fun for me watching you do your thing out there. And you'll always have first dibs and when we're out. And then when you miss, then I'll just knock it over.
Yeah. And it's all joking aside, that's the way I've hunted with my archery career, right? Like I always hunted with Mike, right? And it was I think it was the second sheep hunt I did with Mike and Ken, and we were fortunate enough to spot a couple of rams, and one of them was legal. And I said, okay, well, I can probably get to that one with my bow. And then Kenny had spotted this other ram over here, right? So he waited. I think I've told this story in the podcast before, but he was sitting on a 172 stone sheep for 4 hours watching it while he let me stalk my ram with my bow. And as soon as I shot that ram with my bow, he shot that ram.
Awesome.
Yeah, so
Right.
Wow.
So, hunting partners are key. I think personalities, imagine expectations, and all that stuff are a part of, I think, how we find that camaraderie piece. But, I never really got wound up about it. Like, and maybe it's just me and my stupid mindset, but I've always thought that I can stalk in on anything and kill it. And I call it kill mode, right? Once you get into kill mode, you're in kill mode, right? Yeah. And it becomes second nature, right? Like I remember when I shot that stone sheep, I had 4 arrows in that thing in like less than 30 seconds. Like
Right.
I missed one, 2 of them, 3 of them were in it. And it's like, because I used to get bugged a lot where I'd come back, I'd shoot something, but my quiver was empty, right? I said, well, there's hope. If there's arrows in the air, there's hope. But, as a bow hunter, I think I switched a long time ago from using a rifle because I just didn't find the challenge in it. Right. And it drove me that piece, I think, to get a little bit more connected, to understand what animals are about and how can I outsmart them.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, it's been 14 years between LEH tags and when I shot something. But, the last time I shot was at California Bighorn in 2014, and then I got drawn for the Rosie, and I managed to be successful with the bow. But I mean, that was, again, I've never been target specific on an animal where you picked an animal, hunted it consistently for 4 or 5 days, and that was different for me as a bow hunter. Right? Usually, it's you see it, you spot it, you stalk it, you sneak in and see what you can do. So.
Yeah, I was so pumped for you when you killed that Rosie like that, and spent a lot of time in and just got it done. It was a big undertaking too, right? It was I had to get access to the land and just do everything, and then just continue to put your time in, and then you can. And I just knew for whatever reason you were going to get it done. So I'm feeling you're going to kill something spot and stock. And I talked to Southern, who you mentioned earlier, who's your hunting partner, and Southern's like, fucking right, Chris will do it for sure. If anyone's going to do it, it'll be him for sure. So
Yeah.
Don't let us down, buddy.
No pressure.
No pressure now. But I am not adverse to picking up a gun, so I've done that in the past too. But I think I don't think I have any expectations. I think as a bow hunter, you always look for opportunities, and as a bow hunter, you learn to, if that opportunity presents itself, you take that opportunity, whatever that looks like. So when it comes, you take it.
Perfect.
You're not kicking yourself in the ass later.
Yeah.
It was funny because me and James were bear hunting last spring, and I should get James on here to do a podcast with you. I'm pretty sure he'd yak it up with you, but we'd seen a couple of bears, and I really wanted to get James a bear with his bow, and he stalked a bear to 28 yards, and I've showed the video to a bunch of you guys and stuff, and he probably should have shot the bear. He can kick me in the nuts later for saying that. But,
So do you not release an arrow, or what? You just...
He didn't think the bear was big enough.
Is that right?
Yeah. And
it's his first?
I think he shot bears before,
Okay.
but he wanted to shoot something.
Yeah, substantial.
Yeah,
No, that was a substantial bear. I've
Yeah.
seen the video. I'll say it was a substantial bear. So.
But he goes, so he passed on that bear and he said, I will go back. He said, there's this other little spot I want to check out. So he checked out this other spot, and there was another really good bear on the tidal flat. And but as soon as we came in, he bugged off, and I said, well, let's land. It's still light enough, and said, you watch that spot, and I'll probably just hang out here. And then said, I'm just going to walk down here. And I'd been in there before, so I knew the spot. So I'm just going to walk down here, and I'll cut over. And I was in this estuary, and I'm looking at this freaking elk tracks everywhere. And I was like, whatever. And I disappear, and James goes, fucking Barker. He took his bow and his quiver. That fucker's going to kill something. So he tells me this after, right?
Yeah.
He didn't say anything to me. So I just walking around, and I'm looking, and I get out there, and I look up, and I see this bear across this creek. And I was like, holy shit, there's a bear. I was like, do I really want to shoot a bear? And then it's like, you have those conversations in your head. It's like, why are you even asking yourself that? Did you not fucking come out here to hunt bears?
With a tag, with your bow.
Yeah.
The
Right?
intent
It's
was
like,
clear.
what are you, stupid?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I put a stalk on it. I got within, I think, 46 yards and screwed up on the shot. I shot him. He had good belly hair, and I think I was going for the heart lungs, and I shot him too low, and I think I hit him in the backside of the other leg, and he got away on me. But I came back, and I said to James, I said, we got to go. I shot him. He goes, I fucking knew it, you bastard. So, like I said, opportunities, experience. And it's funny, right? It's what do you get from a trip? It's a memories piece, right? It's not usually from, yes, definitely the successful piece, but I think some of the memories come out of those negative aspects and how you put those negative aspects together. probably with you, Tyler, guiding guys, you can have some part of a negative trip, and then
Oh yeah,
they end up having harvested an animal, and guess what?
it adds to the whole experience.
Yeah, and they remember that forever, right?
I've had a few where I've got stuck and it's been kind of a bad moment, and then 10 minutes later we harvest an animal and it's the greatest minute ever. So it just makes you laugh.
Yeah, the tougher the thing is, the better the memory, right? Or
Exactly.
whatever that piece, like it's all part of the adventure, right? Like if you carry that mantra a lot, right? It's part of the adventure. Just pick it up, get on with it, and move on to the next thing, right?
Yep.
So
Awesome. Well, sounds like we've got 10 days of adventure in front of us.
Can't wait.
whoa, what's your expectations, my
Kyle.
friend?
Let's run through your list.
Yeah, well, my list is, well, I've got obviously
Yeah.
Impala and Blue Wildebeest, in case somebody hasn't figured that out yet. And then, I'm just keen to lap it all up. And, for me, I want to see a lot of animals on the landscape, like the biodiversity and just, and obviously want to take a couple souvenirs home and the memories. But, I think for me going solo, it would be a completely different trip. It's the experience of being with good friends and people that I respect and a respected outfitter, and then that experience of what that's like, and like understanding what Africa's a little bit more about what it's about. And then I'm super stoked just to watch Chris run around with his bow and miss things and
Whatever.
so.
But it'll all be part of that story right at the end. That's the
Well, and I talked to Nolan, and Nolan, what does he talk about most when he talks about Africa? He talks about sitting around the campfire at night with a stogie and a whiskey, probably tequila. And that's like, it's again for him too, like that experience being around friends and family, and pretty. And that's what I'm seeing, these groups coming over now. Like, Chris is coming over with Mike and Malcolm and stuff, and
I think James is coming on that trip.
Yeah,
too.
James Minton's coming over on that too. So, these guys are all coming, and I think that's the cool part, is that experiences that you're doing together. And I just look at the hunts that you and Dave and Mike and Bill used to do, right? You guys were flying all over, going to Alaska for Sitka blacktail or whatever, and just such cool experiences. And that's the part. I'm looking for the camaraderie, I guess that's the main thing.
I'm looking forward to watching Tyler get guided instead of being the guide.
See if he relates to it. How well he relates
Oh,
to
I
it.
already
Don.
shake my head going, oh, God.
Yeah, now you're that guy.
Yeah, I was just thinking that actually earlier.
You are now the client.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you're that guy that when he's trying to tell you that this is a really good one, you should take it. You're going, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a 50-inch kudu. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's going to be great. No, I'm looking forward to it. So, the animals and the camaraderie, those are the two things that are front and center for me.
And I'm like you. I want to see the biodiversity, see the, a camera's going to be in my hand the whole time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, driving from the airport, you're already snapping away at everything,
trying
right?
to get some of the trees. And I mean, such different landscape than what we live on, right?
Yeah, so absolutely.
Yeah, I was looking. They got the same daylilies out here as I do in my front yard.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Like
I noticed the big aloe vera plant by the office.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's 8 feet around and 4 feet tall.
Yeah.
you also noticed the 100 acres on the other side of the fence. Thinking you could put 100 cows.
Yeah, we could have put 100 cows out of that.
I thought that was interesting, right? Like it was, we're in a very like the place we're staying.
It's manicured.
It's beautiful, but outside the doors, it's very, very industrial, and you probably wouldn't want to hang around and walk around and do much else out in that. So, but it's beautiful here and inside, and obviously you wouldn't want to spend 10 days here. I think you'd get a little tired after a couple.
Absolutely.
Well, you guys were already hiring up the tours, like the Diamond Mine and the wineries.
Well, we just looked and see what all was available. Like they have a whole list of stuff that they can provide, right? And
right.
we just thought we'd look at what's available.
Yeah, they had some cool stuff. We walked in the store there was there's some non-Stevenson knives that Don was eyeing up, and then there's those leather boots and stuff. Yeah, some pretty cool stuff. So Chris is already hitting up people for donations for the fundraiser. They're like, Jesus, man, what's wrong with you? They're like, no. I'm like, Barker, shameless.
Mine's already going.
Hey.
It's like,
He's planning.
Yeah. Yeah.
We should get these guys that make these boots to donate a couple pairs.
Yeah, it's awesome. No, super cool. So,
Well, and that's funny, right? It's expectations and what do you bring? Like, and Rian provided a good list, and he said, soft sole boots. It's like, so in my brain, soft sole boots is like, I think me and you were probably on the same page because our boots are really similar. And then I talked to Mike on Friday, and he goes, and I can't remember the boot maker's name. He goes, but they got these boots. They're leather boots, and they've got a soft sole, and I think they were Sods or something. I can't remember the name of the boot. And then, obviously we went in tonight, Don, and looked at them and go, oh, these are the boots that they're talking about, right?
Absolutely.
And it's like, okay, well, that's cool. But Mike also said you want to buy the leather gaiters just to keep the seeds and stuff. So, those little things that can make your experience a little more pleasant or successful. Either the stalking piece, obviously, bow hunting, kind of first front and center is how quiet can you be to get close enough to stick an arrow in something. So, but yeah, no, there's a piece that's a little bit different to what Africa takes compared to what we use for boots in the mountains, right? It's like, okay, it didn't really click in my brain. It's like, oh, I'm taking my hand wags, it's wet here. Yeah. I want to be walking around in decent boots, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But I didn't bring them. I left them at home.
I've got a pair of Schnee's boots from one of our good sponsors, and
yeah, I threw mine in, and then I ended up taking them out. I talked to Nolan, and he's like, so I just brought a couple of runners, basically.
Well, the ones I got are ones that Michael and his dad have kind of set up for this type of hunting.
Right.
So I don't even know if they have a model name yet for the ones I have in my case. So.
All right.
I could think they're probably going to call it the Don Stalker.
I doubt it because looking at it now, it doesn't have the appropriate sole. But I've got a heavy tread sole on them. I mean, they're still a much smaller, lighter boot than what I would normally wear in the mountains. But
yeah, awesome.
So yeah, I think that gear piece is something I never really thought about, right? And I don't know about you guys, but do I bring a spotting scope? No, you don't need a spotting scope.
Exactly. I was kind of doing the same thing.
Well, and we were told to prepare for like October weather, and
that varies pretty bad in BC.
Today, this is not our October weather. Today, this is like our July 5th weather.
I think it's probably cooler than people most. And like it cooled down tonight. I put a pair of pants on tonight, but we went in for dinner, right? And we were out having a drink in the. So this place is great. Like they've got a little bar. You go in. You don't. Everything's included. Your meals, your booze, apart from I think hard liquor, and they got a little sitting area. You can have a pre-dinner drink before you go in for dinner.
It's awesome.
Order your dinner and stuff. And I walked in and I said, can we bring a bottle of wine? And she says, yeah, you just pick your wine and bring it in. And I walked in and they had a fire going and this 2 ladies in blue down jackets.
Yeah.
And I go, it's pretty warm in here. She goes, oh, it's cold. Like you were saying, Don. So just those different perspectives and getting, the local perspective to compare.
Well, we were coming over and it was 20 degrees and Don was he's just coming out of his pores. He's so hot. I'm like, oh, Don, you're going to be so hot this week.
I am.
Yeah.
But it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Well, at least he's got some color in his cheeks today. Yeah. You looked a little pale last night.
Yeah.
Not sleeping for 30 hours doesn't do me a lot of good. So.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be a good one. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. So just another great chat and BS and overall, and we'll circle back and have a chat at the airport on the way out of town as we're leaving, or maybe we'll do it from Frankfurt, and we'll have the energy of the trip behind us, but be a little deflated because we were on that long flight home. But yeah, awesome. It was great.
We have some more German beer in Frankfurt.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was awesome to connect and have our chat under the African sky.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.